Hi, and welcome back to my channel, Learning Biology with Dr. Vanessa, where we take difficult biological concepts and make them easy to understand. Every single day, your body filters around 150 to 180 liters of blood, removing waste, balancing electrolytes, and keeping you hydrated, all without you even noticing. But how exactly does this happen? Join me as we delve into the urinary system. In this video, we'll take a look at the functions of the urinary system and the anatomy of the urinary system. In the urinary system, the majority of work is done by the kidneys. The primary functions of the kidneys include the following list that we're going to go through. I'm going to give you an overview of these different functions, but later on, when I make a physiology video, we're going to go more into detail as to how exactly the kidneys do this. So the first thing that the kidney functions in is that they can regulate blood volume. The kidneys can conserve or eliminate water in the urine to adjust blood volume. Increasing blood volume increases blood pressure, and decreasing blood volume decreases blood pressure. The kidneys can also work to help with the regulation of the chemical makeup of blood. They can regulate several ions, mostly including sodium, potassium, calcium, chloride, and phosphate ions. The kidneys also work in the regulation of blood pH, where they can excrete hydrogen ions into the urine and conserve bicarbonate ions. The kidneys also work in the regulation of blood pressure. They can secrete renin, which is an enzyme, and this can activate the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone pathway, which increases blood pressure. The kidneys also work in the regulation of blood osmolarity. They can regulate both water loss and solute loss in the urine, and this helps to maintain a constant blood osmolarity. The kidneys also work in the production of hormones. They produce a hormone called calcitriol, which is the active form of vitamin D, and this helps regulate calcium homeostasis. They also produce erythropoietin, which stimulates the production of red blood cells. And finally, the kidneys can work in the regulation of blood glucose level by using glutamine, an amino acid, in gluconeogenesis, which is the synthesis of new glucose molecules. This glucose can then be released into the blood to maintain normal blood glucose levels. So you can see that the kidneys are involved in a wide variety of things. And then as a side effect of these true functions of the kidneys and the urinary system, the urinary system is then going to excrete and form urine, which allows the body to remove toxins and regulate fluid balance. The major players of the urinary system include your kidneys, ureters, bladder, and urethra. Your kidneys are two bean-shaped organs sitting just below your ribs. These powerhouse organs filter your entire blood volume about 50 times per day, removing waste while keeping what your body needs. An adult kidney is about 4 to 5 inches long, 2 to 3 inches wide, and 1 inch thick. Near the center of the concave border is the hilum of the kidney. This is the area where the ureter is found. It also contains the renal artery, which supplies blood to the kidney, and the renal vein, which takes deoxygenated, nutrient-depleted blood away from the kidneys. Let's take a closer look at the external anatomy of the kidneys. There are 3 tissue layers that surround the kidney. The deep layer, which is going to be the one that directly surrounds the kidney, is the fibrous capsule. It is a smooth, transparent sheet of collagen-rich connective tissue that is continuous with the outer coat of the ureter. This layer serves as a protective layer and to help maintain the shape of the kidney. As we come further outward, that middle layer is the perirenal fat capsule. It is fatty tissue that surrounds the fibrous capsule. This layer serves as a protective layer, and it helps to hold the kidneys in place within the abdominal cavity. And then the outermost layer is the superficial layer, which is the renal fascia. It is a collagenous and elastic, dense, irregular connective tissue that anchors the kidney to the abdominal wall. Now join me as we go into the kidneys and look at the internal anatomy of the kidneys. If we look within the kidneys, we are going to see the renal cortex, which is a superficial light red region. And then further in from that cortex, we see the renal medulla, which is a deep, darker reddish brown inner region. The renal pyramids are cone-shaped regions that we see within the renal medulla, and the renal columns are the parts of the renal cortex that extend between the renal pyramids. The renal cortex and the renal pyramids make up the parenchyma, or the functional portion of the kidney. Within the parenchyma is where the magic happens. This is where we find the functional unit of the kidney, the nephron. Each kidney has about 1 million of them working together to separate waste from nutrients. The result? Urine, your body's way of eliminating excess water, salts, and metabolic byproducts. Now, we're going to set the nephron aside for a bit because in another video, we're going to talk more about the anatomy of the nephron and how the nephron works because there's a lot to it. So let's continue on talking about the kidney. The filtrate or filtered fluid that is formed from these nephrons are going to drain into large papillary ducts. The papillary ducts are then going to drain into cup-like structures called the minor and major calyces. Each kidney has about 8 to 18 minor calyces and 2 or 3 major calyces. Once the filtrate reaches the calyces, it becomes urine because at this point, no more reabsorption can occur. Urine then drains into a single large cavity called the renal pelvis and then out of the kidney through the ureter to the urinary bladder. Now, the blood supply to the kidney is really important because the kidneys are going to be filtering the blood. The kidneys are only about 0.5% of total body mass, but they receive 20 to 25% of resting cardiac output. This comes into the kidneys through the right and left renal arteries. In adults, blood flow through both kidneys is about 1,200 milliliters per minute. The renal artery, as it enters into the kidney, then divides into several segmental arteries, which branch off and enter the parenchyma as interlobular arteries. At the base of the renal pyramid, these arteries become arcuate arteries. These then form cortical radiate arteries, which radiate outward and enter the renal cortex. Within the renal cortex, they give off branches called afferent glomerular arterioles. And this is where it's going to enter into the nephron. Each nephron receives one afferent glomerular arteriole, which divides into a ball-shaped capillary network called the glomerulus. This ball exits through the efferent glomerular arteriole, which carries blood out of the glomerulus. The efferent glomerular arterioles divide to form peritubular capillaries, which surround tubular parts of the nephron in the renal cortex. Some efferent glomerular arterioles have long loop-shaped capillaries that extend from them, which are called vasa recta. These supply tubular portions of the nephron in the renal medulla. The peritubular capillaries then reunite to form cortical radiate veins, which also receive blood from the vasa recta. The blood then drains to the arcuate veins to the interlobular veins that run between renal pyramids. Blood leaves the kidney through a single renal vein that exits at the renal hilum. The renal veins will then drain the venous blood into the inferior vena cava. Once the kidneys do their job, urine travels down 2 narrow tubes called the ureters. These tubes have muscular walls that rhythmically contract, a motion called peristalsis, to push urine towards the bladder, a hollow, expandable organ that can hold up to 16 ounces of liquid before signaling that it's time to go. When you're ready, urine exits through the urethra, controlled by sphincters that prevent leaks until you decide to empty your bladder. Now let's go back to the urethra. Around the opening of the urethra, there are two sphincters, an internal urethral sphincter made of smooth, involuntary muscle, and an external urethral sphincter made of skeletal, which is voluntary muscle. You can control it. A sphincter is a ring-shaped muscle that relaxes or tightens to open or close a passage or opening of the body. When we urinate, that process is known as micturition, and that is releasing that urine from the body. This occurs as a combination of voluntary and involuntary muscle contractions. When the volume of urine in the bladder exceeds 200 to 400 milliliters, stretch receptors in the bladder will detect the increasing volume and send signals to the sacral region of the spinal cord via the pelvic nerves. This will trigger a spinal reflex known as the Micturition reflex. Parasympathetic impulses are then sent to the urinary bladder wall and the internal urethral sphincter, which cause contraction of the bladder and relaxation of the internal urethral sphincter. At the same time, somatic motor neurons that innervate skeletal muscle in the external urethral sphincter are inhibited. Once the bladder is contracted and both sphincters are relaxed, urination takes place. Although the internal sphincter relaxes involuntarily, the external urethral sphincter, which is made of skeletal muscle, remains under voluntary control. This means you can consciously decide to hold in urine or allow urination to proceed. This ability comes from higher brain centers, particularly the cerebral cortex, which can delay urination even when the bladder is full. As you can see, your urinary system isn't just about waste removal. It's vital for blood pressure regulation, electrolyte balance, and hydration. Keeping it healthy means staying hydrated, maintaining a balanced diet, and avoiding excessive toxins like alcohol and high sodium foods. This is why staying hydrated is so important. Your kidneys rely on water to keep your body balanced and functioning smoothly. So the next time you reach for a glass of water, remember you're giving your kidneys the fuel they need to keep you thriving. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe so that you never miss out on new content. Up next, we will cover the functional unit of kidney, the nephron. This is the powerhouse behind kidney function. Stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next video.